Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929. His father was a pastor and his mother was a teacher. Martin and his family were black. Many years ago, people with brown skin like the Kings used to be bought and sold as slaves. Thankfully, that was no longer allowed. Sadly, many people with dark skin still did not have the same rights as many other people living in the USA. Big white only signs keep
Cats.
black people
Keep going.
out of many places. They could not eat at certain
Diners.
They could not go to certain schools. They were not even allowed to drink at certain water fountains. Martin did not think this was fair.
Martin loved to learn. He learned to read when he was very young. He read many books about famous black leaders. When Martin entered school, he was a great student. He even finished high school 2 years early. After high school, Martin went to college. During college, he decided to become a pastor. Later, he met a sweet woman. Her name was Coretta. The two fell in love. Soon, they were married. Martin was a good pastor. He cared about the people in his church. He wanted to help them have a better life. He wanted them to have the same rights white people had.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. Five score years ago, a great American in whose symbolic shadow we stand today signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of withering injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of their captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. 100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished in the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. And so we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.